Was an unstoppable tower of power in front of the net, with a lightning-quick release and a deadly accurate shot. Yet, what defined Flyers' right wing Tim Kerr was not just his goal-scoring prowess, but his unparalleled courage in the face of a relentless storm of brutal injuries and a heart-wrenching personal loss. Join us as we journey through the inspirational, though often overshadowed career of the man known as the Sultan of the Slot. We'll explore the questions. Is Tim Kerr's brief yet phenomenal career deserving of a Hall of Fame induction? And did his cruelly timed injuries rob him and the 1980s Philadelphia Flyers of Stanley Cup glory?
Taps it behind for Eklund. Eklund looks, Kerr scores! There it is, a new all-time power play goal record in a single season, number 29 for Timmy Kerr.
Tim Kerr was born in Windsor, Ontario, January 5, 1960. He was a late bloomer who compiled modest numbers through his first 3 seasons in junior hockey. And his work ethic was lacking, so he went undrafted in the 1979 NHL draft. Ignored by all 21 NHL teams, Kerr returned to junior hockey saddled with the tag of being a poor skater and an underachiever. However, he blossomed in the 1979-80 campaign with the Kingston Canadiens, scoring 40 goals in 63 games, and finally drew significant interest from NHL teams. The Flyers saw something special in Tim, but so did several other teams. Coming off a record-setting 79-80 season, the Flyers were loaded with talent, with a $10,000 signing bonus helped convince Kerr to take his chances on making Philadelphia's big club. Now, originally ticketed to the American Hockey League, the 6'3", 200-pound Kerr made an immediate impression on Flyers brass and secured a spot in the team's 1980-81 roster. Kerr was a solid third-line player in his first 2 years, scoring a combined 43 goals and 96 points despite missing 31 games with a pair of serious knee injuries. His progress stalled in 1982-83 as he played just 24 games due to more knee injuries, a hernia, and a broken leg. And that bad luck would be a portent for even more misery later in his career. By now, Tim had been labeled as injury-prone, but he stayed healthy in the 1983-84 season and scored 54 goals, often playing right wing on a line with Dave Poulin and Brian Propp. He scored number 50 on March 22, 1984 versus the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Goes Sinisalo, kicks it into the corner, picked up again by Fox. And Greg Fox from the Blackhawks going in front, shot, score! There it is, that's number 50.
That offseason, the Flyers rewarded Kerr with a 4-year, $800,000 contract, and he proved his worth by repeating his 54-goal production in 1984-85 and was even better in the playoffs with 10 goals in 12 games. Kerr had established himself as the NHL's premier slot presence with strong hands and a talent at collecting loose pucks, much like Phil Esposito of a generation prior. Hall of Fame center Brian Trottier once joked the only way to stop Kerr was to wrap chains around his arms and legs. Now, short of chains, NHL defenders chose to tackle, hold, slash, and cross-check Kerr, who shrugged off the no-holes-barred 1980s defensive tactics as part of the game. But power plays gave him more room to operate, with Mark Howe quarterbacking at the point and center Pelle Eklund threading pinpoint passes. Kerr was incredibly productive with the man advantage.
Howe with Propp. Howe breaking for the net. Offensive right side. In front. Score! Timmy Kerr!
Kerr's dominating presence in the Flyers' power play was never more evident than the first round of the 1985 playoffs. In Game 3 against the New York Rangers, Kerr set a still-standing NHL record by scoring 4 goals, 3 on the power play, in a span of just 8:16 in the second period, in a 6-5 win at Madison Square Garden.
Red lit the lamp 4 times in an incredible 8-minute and 16-second span. No 4 goals have ever been scored in a shorter span of time in Stanley Cup playoff history.
Kerr was on a tear, but another knee injury forced him to limp through the final 2 rounds of the postseason, and the Flyers lost to the Edmonton Oilers in a 5-game Stanley Cup final. The following season also started ominously, as Kerr was hospitalized with a septic meningitis in September. However, he recovered to score 58 goals and was named starting right wing at the 1986 NHL All-Star Game in Hartford, Connecticut.
At right wing from the Philadelphia Flyers, their big offensive machine with the golden touch on the power play, playing his third All-Star contest, number 12, Tim Kerr.
NHL single-season record for most power play goals with 29, and he'd end the season with 34 man advantage goals. That's a record that still stands today.
And taps it behind for Eklund. Eklund looks, Kerr scores! There it is, a new all-time power play goal record in a single season, number 29 for Timmy Kerr.
But this was a somber year for the Flyers franchise as all-star goaltender Pelle Lindbergh died in a November 11 car wreck. The Flyers were bounced in the first round of the playoffs. The Flyers rebounded in 1986-87, and Kerr again victimized NHL goaltenders for 58 goals, finishing second in the NHL to Wayne Gretzky. Mike Keenan's young Flyers looked like bona fide Stanley Cup contenders, and they scored playoff series victories over the New York Rangers, New York Islanders, and Montreal Canadiens to reach the finals against the Edmonton Oilers. However, Kerr's horrible luck had returned late in the Islanders series when a severe shoulder separation essentially cost him the entire final two rounds against Montreal and Edmonton. Kerr tried to play through the pain, but the shoulder gave out. He could only watch as the Flyers took the Oilers to the 7-game limit in the finals before losing. Just as in 1985, Kerr's body betrayed him and the Flyers at the worst possible time. The Flyers mustered just 6 goals in their 4 series losses, and that begs the question, would the Flyers have prevailed in the series with a healthy Tim Kerr? And the worst was yet to come for Tim. Over the summer, Dr. John Gray cleaned out the damage in his left shoulder and inserted a surgical pin to hold that shoulder in place. The pin came loose, and the shoulder separated again. Then another pin was inserted, and this one became infected, and it had to be removed. Diligently, Kerr worked out with Flyers strength and conditioning instructor Pat Croce. Still, his shoulder was not responding. Witnessing these brutal rehab sessions, Flyers coach Mike Keenan, not one to be generous with praise, called Tim, quote, the most courageous player I've ever seen. As a result of these setbacks, Kerr endured 5 shoulder operations in a 14-month period and missed all but a handful of the 1987-88 regular season. But despite his ailing shoulder and lengthy injury history, the Flyers gave Kerr a 4-year, $1.6 million contract prior to the season. Kerr would rebound to play 69 games and score 48 goals in 1988-89, a feat which earned him the Masterton Trophy for perseverance and dedication to the sport. He played several games with no feeling in his shoulder, and only a broken thumb prevented him from another 50-goal season. With the postseason approaching, it appeared Tim was in top form.
And a 2-on-1, moving in is Acton with Tim Kerr. Acton across the Kerr, score! Tim Kerr, it's 2-0 Flyers.
But the 1989 playoffs saw an all-too-familiar scenario play out for Kerr. He stepped up his scoring even further and was a major force in the Flyers' first-round series victory over Washington, and then matched Mario Lemieux goal for goal in the second round versus Pittsburgh. But in the 7th game of the Penguins series, Kerr's thumb was broken again, this time from a slash from Jim Johnson. The Flyers took the series, but Kerr could do little to help in the Wales Conference Final. The Flyers lost in 6 games, and Kerr, unable to grip his stick, scored just 1 goal in the series. Still, his postseason production of 14 goals in 19 games remains an NHL playoff record for most goals by a player not to make the Stanley Cup Finals. Our shoulder injuries would come back to haunt Kerr once again in 89-90 as he was limited to just 48 games, scoring 24 goals. Those injuries would appear trivial the next season, however, as Tim would now face unimaginable tragedy. On October 16, 1990, while on a road trip, Tim learned that his wife, Kathy, had suddenly passed 10 days after giving birth to a healthy girl. According to doctors, she succumbed to a cardiopulmonary complication during delivery. She was 30 years old. Tim was now a single father, raising 3 children on his own. The Flyers and their fans rallied behind Tim and welcomed him back to the lineup 2 weeks after Kathy's passing. Unfortunately, Kerr's shoulder separated again and he played just 27 games in 1990-91. In addition to his personal pain, Tim had now withstood 9 shoulder surgeries, 2 knee surgeries, a hernia operation, a viral infection of the brain lining, in a serious groin injury. He battled valiantly through each of these setbacks, but his Flyers career had finally come to an end. Kerr was left exposed in the 1991 NHL expansion draft, and after being claimed by the San Jose Sharks, he was quickly dealt